was the last time you were planning a trip and you didn't know exactly how to get there? What is the first step that you took? Well, if you're like me, you're going to pull out your navigation tool, whatever that is, if it's in your car, if it's on your phone, and you are going to put in your end location, right? Because the device already recognizes where you are right now. So you're going to put in your end destination. And then what happens? It magically does this work, and it figures out exactly what turn you need to take, and it even tells you how long it will take you to get there. Isn't that amazing? That's exactly what we have developed here at Dr. Sellars Educate. We provide a roadmap using evidence-based practices to help you navigate your way to achieve success. When we set on this journey to achieve success, we know what we want the outcome to be. However, we don't know what steps we need to take, what resources, how long it's going to take us to get there, and that's exactly what the 7-week study plan provides. Welcome back, everybody, to Dr. Sellars Educate, where our mission is simple. It is to support every nurse educator to achieve excellence in the classroom. And for many of you, that means achieving success on the CNE exam. We want you to make sure you pull out your resources, okay? So first of all, if you have your study workbook, we want you to go ahead and pull that out. We're going to be focusing on page 15 for our time together today. And this is part 1. And that will help you really focus on the teaching strategies that are going to actively engage our learner and helps us to develop those teaching strategies that are evidence-based and most aligned with the humanistic learning theory that we're going to talk about today. And then next, we want you to pull out Billings and Halstead, Teaching and Nursing. Okay, we're going to go ahead and give you the specific page numbers that we want you to read along and follow as you are developing and hopefully validating knowledge and competencies related to humanistic learning theory. Okay, so on page 258 is where you're going to see some content around humanism. And then on page 259, this is the 6th edition, Billings and Halstead. You're going to see some implications for nursing education. Okay, so I just want to point out one snippet of content that's included here. This is the second paragraph under implications for nursing education. It says faculty create a learning environment that fosters and promotes self-development by establishing an informal and relaxed climate. Now, if you all have tuned into our channel before, and if you haven't, by the way, make sure you subscribe. We launch a new snapshot every single week, and that is the best way to make sure you are alerted right away. Okay, and we are on Snapshot 147. We also have a YouTube directory. Now, let me tell you about the benefit of that as we talk about navigation and a roadmap to success. That directory is going to give you a list of all of the snapshots, because what we want you to do is focus on the ones that you really need to review and refresh yourself regarding those concepts and that content to ensure you stay focused on your journey to reach your destination. Okay, so those are some specific page numbers related to humanism. And then we also want you to focus on table 14.1. You all probably already guessed that. And this is where you're going to find some great examples of teaching strategies as well as content that is aligned with learning theory. Okay, and that's on page 249. Again, that's table 14.1. And one more resource we want to point out in Billings and Halstead. And I want to share while I'm flipping there, the reason why we want you to use the 6th edition is because if you're on the journey to CNE, then this is the edition that the actual exam writers use to develop their content. Okay, so this is why we want you to use this resource. So it's going to be chapter 16. Okay, so when you turn to chapter 16, you're going to see a lot of information about evidence-based practices that are going to help you keep our students engaged. We know that can be a challenge, and so we want to use all of the evidence-based practices to do that. So how do we do that? How do we create a relaxed environment? Well, I don't know if you can hear the subtle music that's playing right now, but that's one strategy that I encourage you all to use, and that is music. Okay, you can engage students into a variety of different music, especially if there's a specific artist that may be from the area. So just consider creating a more relaxed environment by having music available, by also engaging in a 1 minute reflection whenever students come in the room, just having a topic on the board for students to really reflect on in the first minute of class. And this is a way you can choose to either do it as a pre-class activity where you want to find out their knowledge level related to a concept, or maybe even questions they have about a specific topic that you're going to be introducing during that lecture. Or it could be a little bit of a debrief. So maybe you're asking them to list 2 questions that they still have related to a topic that you covered in the previous session. Okay, that's a 1 minute paper, 1 minute reflection that I like to engage students in at the beginning of class. And then the next topic is related to our time together today. So are you ready is what I want to know. Okay, so how do you get ready for today? Well, first and foremost is going to be printing out that study worksheet. We've already talked about the resources, so that's how you get ready. I want you to make sure you have that study worksheet every single time you show up for a session. Even if you're watching this as a replay, you may not be watching it when it was released, and that would have been on Monday at 9 a.m. That's when we release every snapshot every week. And so I want you to print out that study worksheet, and I want you to write down today's date, okay? And then I want you to write down the objective. So what is it that you want to accomplish by the end of our time together? Remember that navigation analogy? Well, that's exactly what you are on. We are supporting you on your journey to success. And for those that are on the journey to recertify, we're here to support you as well. Okay, so that's first and foremost, printing out that study worksheet, as well as having those other resources. And if you don't have the study worksheet, if you don't have the resources we've talked about, just pull out a piece of paper. Okay, it's really important that you take notes, whether you are, whether or not you have those additional resources right now. All right, so now let's talk about the interactions that are going on in this image. Okay, so look at the Post-it notes. I just want you to write down 3 observations that you are witnessing related to the humanistic or humanism learning theory. Okay, so write down 3 observations you are making about behaviors that are associated with humanism or humanistic learning theory. All right, so I'll give you a few seconds to do that. And I will stop the music now. Okay, very good. So let's talk about a few that we see. Well, first and foremost, we see this engagement in a collaborative effort, right? Because you can see that someone is standing up with Post-it notes and they are assumingly writing down thoughts, or maybe each individual person has written down thoughts, because you can see there's a young lady writing on the orange Post-it notes. So there's collective thought that is being shared. You also see engagement as a group, right? Because each individual person is not in a room by themselves. Everyone is in this room together. Okay, and then what else do you see? Well, we see, assumingly, discussions happening amongst this group, because you can see the person at the front looks like she's in the middle of a sentence, probably looks like she's pointing at a Post-it note. She could have just posted a Post-it note. And so there's a lot of collective energy that's happening in this room. And there can be a lot of other activities that they are engaging in. Perhaps it could even be an unfolding case study, right? Where we have students that are thinking about what sequence of events are happening related to a certain patient scenario. Okay, so just think about ways that we can actively engage learners in the learning process. All right, so let's take a look at this thought-provoking question, since we're focusing on humanistic learning theory. A nurse educator received feedback last year about creating an intimidating learning environment in the classroom. Which of the following is an example of a humanistic teaching practice in nursing education? So we have A, relying on lectures to deliver course content for every class. B, using standardized tests to validate learning and meeting outcomes. C, allowing students to share clinical experiences in small groups. So what I want you to do is to do 2 things. This is what happens every time you get to a question on the CNE exam. Number 1 is I want you to think about, what is this question really asking me? Okay. And then second of all, what is it that I know for sure about concepts that are included in this question? All right, so that's what I want you to consider every single question you see on the CNE exam. So, what is humanistic learning theory anyway? Well, it emphasizes personal growth, self direction, positivity in education. We want to facilitate learning. We also want to demonstrate or role model these evidence based practices related to strategies that we can integrate into the learning experience so our students feel like they are an active participant in the learning process. Okay, and what else do we know about learning theory? Well, it focuses on each individual student's needs and, most importantly, their potential, right? We want to maximize the interactions that we're having with our learners so that they can feel like and really embrace the learning process. Malcolm Knowles' adult learning theory from an andragogy perspective talks about the importance of self-directed learning. And then we have David Cobb's experiential learning theory, who says at the point of practice, right, that's when we start going through all four phases of the actual learning process. Okay, so what else do we know? Well, we also know that Carl Rogers is one of the pioneers in exploring humanistic learning theory. And this is what he said: the curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. All right, so let's process this statement and what it means. Well, first and foremost, it's about having that self awareness of what your knowledge gaps are, okay, as it relates to the CNE exam. And how do you do that? Well, if you guessed, printing out that candidate handbook, going to the detailed test blueprint, and then using that as your roadmap, as your guide to identify what your knowledge gaps are. And then what else does Carl Rogers say? Then I can change, right? We have to know where we are, thinking about navigation, getting in your car, right? You have an end destination, but right now, initially, we only know where we are today. Okay, so thinking about how I change and how I move forward in reaching my destination for CNE is based on where your gaps are today. And then we go through the journey together of identifying those resources that are going to help you close your knowledge gaps. All right, so what else do we know about learning theory and how it aligns with the NLN Hallmarks of Excellence and the blueprint? Well, first of all, with the blueprint, this is centered around facilitation of learning and being able to engage in our students in the learning process. We want them to be active participants in the learning process. The first hallmark of excellence we want to take a look at is engaging our students. This goes back to chapter 16 in Billings and Halstead. There's a whole chapter focused on active learning and engaging our students in the learning process. So we want to show enthusiasm. We want to be respectful of our learners. We want to be clear about our expectations of them, as well as what they can expect of us. Well, what does that look like? Well, they can expect that we will have office hours every week. They can expect that we will discuss any questions that they have, that we will start class on time, that we will end class on time, that we will engage in evidence-based content in our class, that we will map our exams to the resources that we are using in the class to help students close their knowledge gaps. Okay, so that's what we mean by respecting our students, this active engagement in learning. It is a partnership, right, that we as the educator commit to with our students. We have synergy. We're on the same page. We are aligned as the facilitator of learning in the classroom, but it has to be a collaborative experience. Okay, and what else? What else about the hallmarks of excellence is it that you want to be aware of as you move forward on your journey? The next hallmark we want to look at is the culture of continuous quality improvement. This respect, you see it kind of peppered all throughout several of the hallmarks of excellence. But for this one, we are focused on feedback, right? That structured and unstructured feedback from our internal and external stakeholders. We want to hear from them about what's working well, what's not working so well, and then we work on a strategy to make improvements. Okay, so that's within us as individual faculty as well as within the nursing program overall. The last hallmark we want to focus on is the innovative evidence-based curriculum. We want to engage and develop our learning strategies in the classroom and Our goal is that students will be able to engage in critical thinking and clinical judgment. We are going to create environments where we are promoting and embracing cultural diversity in our curriculum. We do that by, first of all, having awareness of our own biases and then identifying what changes we need to make in our curriculum to create a more inclusive learning experience, a more interdisciplinary, collaborative experience within our curriculum as well. And then I would say, if you're not familiar with these hallmarks of excellence, if you want to go back and take a look at the directory, we did a whole series on the hallmarks of excellence. Aligning with Carl Rogers' work is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You probably already guessed it based on some of the concepts that we've introduced already. So where do we start with Maslow's? Well, it's those basic needs, those physiological needs. If we don't have food, water, shelter, we struggle as a human to be able to properly function. And then we look at those safety needs, okay? Creating a brave space for our students. During the GAIN conference last week, there was a lot of talk about that. So it's not just a safe space when we think about the learning environment, but we want to create a brave space where students feel confident and comfortable speaking up professionally, right, in a civil way. But we want to create a space where students feel comfortable seeking out their faculty, collaborating with their peers to ensure that they are closing their knowledge gaps. So we want to create this brave space for our students so they can speak up and advocate for themselves. And then the next level is belongingness and having their love needs met. This is the psychological component of esteem, right? We want to be respectful of our students. We want to give them formative feedback in a respectful way that demonstrates caring and compassion to help them achieve success. Identifying resources, if there are referrals that we need to make for our students, we want to be able to have knowledge of that so that they can ultimately reach self-actualization, where they have self-directed behaviors that are going to help them, first of all, identify where their gaps are. Then we partner with them to give them recommendations and to give guidance so that they can reach their fullest potential. That is ultimately the goal when we look at the self-actualization theory as well as the humanistic learning theory. So what are some of those teaching strategies? Well, we just wanted to share one that you might want to try out, and that is a reflective discussion circle. So you are able to engage your participants in small groups, and then they have discussions about clinical experiences. Perhaps there's some discussion about misalignment between what students are seeing in the clinical setting and what they are hearing in the didactic setting, okay? And we want to have discussions about that. We want students to be able to leverage their firsthand experiences of what's happening in the clinical setting for a deeper understanding. This is when we engage in development of clinical judgment, where students are able to really recognize those cues, to think about how they are going to prioritize, respond, reflect, and build on prior learning and making those decisions and prior experiences. All right, and then last but not least, let's take a look at our thought-provoking question as we wrap up. If you chose C, allowing students to share clinical experiences in small groups, you are correct. Excellent work. And as we talk through specific concepts related to humanistic theory, hopefully everybody chose the correct answer, which is C. All right, so what we want you to do is fill out the rest of that study worksheet as you reflect and really debrief from the time that we spent together in this snapshot. And if you have any questions about concepts or content that we have covered, reach out to us, info@Dr. Sellars Educate. We hope this snapshot has been helpful, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great one, everybody.